Good evening. How you eat is being turned into a muddy political broth to poison us all. The netas are out having a field day in states ruled by opposition parties. Mamata is calling it anti-federal. The Congress is spinning this into somehow being anti-Muslim, while at the same time distancing itself from its butchers amid the ranks who thought slaughtering a calf was somehow a great political stunt. In Tamil campuses, beef parties are being organized as the Karnataka Chief Minister has said his state will challenge the centre's laws against national cow slaughter. The reality is, cow slaughter has been banned in India pretty much since independence. Netas across party lines are hoodwinking us all with lies and half-truths and misinformation on what is banned and what is not. The Hindu fringe is trying to make a cause of it. The government at the centre is reiterating laws and seeking enforcement leading from UP, while the opposition is trying to twist everything that the cow slaughter ban into seeming like all bovine slaughter in this country and its consumption is somehow being banned. That's not the case. The bottom line is, what should you be concerned with? Cows are considered sacred in this country by Hindus because they provide milk. That's the genesis to their holiness. We've forgotten just 50 years ago, India did not have enough milk to even provide for its own babies. The slaughter of buffaloes is not banned, nor is it illegal. That's also beef. No one wants to clarify that point because all sides literally are feeding off misinterpretations. India can easily look after the religious concerns of pious Hindus without interfering in your right to decide what you eat and curb natural concerns amongst minority-run slaughterhouses who are victims to the fringe. That we are not doing it is the politics. It's time netas kept their cookery to themselves. Let's send them that message tonight. Here's a report, then we open up that conversation.
First Manipur, then Kerala, and now Tamil Nadu. The new cow slaughter rules have opened a new front in the centre versus the state's tussle.
कांग्रेस के कार्यकर्ता देश पर सेंटिमेंट के साथ क्यों खिलवाड़ करते हैं? ये क्या हो रहा है?
Anger on Modi government's order against selling cattle and hence imposing an indirect beef ban was evident. While this evening, protests erupted in Chennai. A group of students at the Indian Institute of Technology had held a beef festival on Sunday night.
These students call the central government's move as food fascism and say that everybody has a democratic right to choose their choice of food. The right-wing student group in the campus has opposed this fest that took place yesterday, while the IIT authorities have not taken any kind of action against the students who participated in this beef fest.
It goes against people who rear cattle, who trade cattle and who slaughter cattle.
Top MNCs will come into this area where big slaughterhouses are built and crores of rupees, which is unaffordable for an ordinary farmer.
Meanwhile, in Kerala, Congress youth workers were suspended a day after they reportedly slaughtered a calf in public.
काउ प्रोटेक्शन एक्ट जो भी है हर स्टेट में बना हुआ है, वो केंद्र का सब्जेक्ट तो नहीं है.
In Bengaluru, authorities' decision to deny permission for a beef fest turned violent, with the city witnessing clashes between the student groups.
Chief Minister
Beef fest turned violent, with the city witnessing clashes between the student groups.
Chief Minister, who's in Delhi tour, has clearly told that he is going to protest against the centre's new rule. What is mentioned is that anything concerning cattle comes under the state list and that the state government is carefully examining the new strictures passed by the union government. After careful deliberation by the law department, the state government now intends to knock the centre's door or, need be, the courts also.
The government of India has, by a piece of delegated legislation, by a rule, sought to encroach on the powers of the state legislature with regard to NT 26 and NT 28, which is unconstitutional.
The centre has so far maintained that there has been no infringement on the rights of citizens by this new rule. But with the states up in arms against Modi Sarkar's decision, the question is, who draws the line, and does any political party have the right to take the higher moral ground? Bureau Report, NewsX.
All right, it was the British Cartouche that sparked a mutiny 160 years ago because it was covered in beef lard and pork fat. And 160 years later, someone is trying to reignite that political powder keg once again. Why is it being done and what is the purpose being served? Let us examine first the things and where they stand and what has happened and what has not happened to clarify things for our viewers tonight before we get into the muddy waters of politicians throwing charges and counter charges at each other, which actually achieves very little. The bottom line is that a ban on cow slaughter has been on the directive principles of India's state policy enshrined into our constitution on the issues of protecting milch cows. 25 states for donkey's years, and don't use that word lightly, have had various rules and regulations regarding cow slaughter, the majority of them banning it in certain form or the other. Cow slaughter. Buffaloes, separate, gets muddied here. It's muddied by the same Hindu fringe elements who even attack those who are trying to confuse the issue between what is beef and what is not beef. Now, the union government at the center has invoked a union law on the prevention of cruelty to animals to take on the issue of not selling cows for slaughter, which means they can't be sold, but they can be within states that allow it, be reared for slaughter, but can't be sold for it. That's where things stand. Let's open up this conversation now. Dr. Subramaniam Swamy, Rajya Sabha MP of the BJP, joining us. Sanjeev Unyal, a member of the RSS, is joining us from Delhi. T.R. Rahmani is joining us. He's from the Muslim Political Council of India, and Sanjay Jha representing the Congress. Dr. Swamy, given the fact that some level of laws against cow slaughters have been on the books in India since the constitutional days, most states have very strong rules. I think barring 5, pretty much every state has banned cow slaughter in some form or the other, sir. Given these pre-existing conditions, was there a preeminent need to invoke a central legislation on the prevention of cruelty against animals and invoke it on cows?
First of all, there was no legislation. There were rules which were actually in draft form given to the public through various media sources in January of this 2016. And then when the suggestions came in, they were examined, and then later this year, that is when about 2-3 days ago, the rules as decided on the basis of the inputs as well as the experts' opinion were framed under the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals on the regulation of markets, and nothing more than that. In that, it was a clause was introduced that cows for slaughter shall not be allowed in the animal markets, and this shall be supervised by an animal market committee consisting of the collector, the local representatives, the Jilla Panchayat people, etc., a very elaborate committee. And it is basically to ensure that the markets are not used for selling cows and other milk animals, including buffaloes, for slaughter.
Okay, so Dr. Swamy, when you see Mamata Banerjee say that this is anti-federal, you see several leaders from the opposition say that this is somehow anti-Muslim, there are beef parties being organized. Why do you think all of this is happening?
Well, first of all, most of them are illiterates because our constitution is not a federal constitution. It's a unitary constitution with some federal principles, subsidiary principles. And if it was a federal constitution, the president's rule would never be a clause in our constitution. And it was made clear by Ambedkar in the Constituent Assembly itself. Now, to talk about federal, there are limits. We have exclusive domain for the center, concurrent for both center and the state, and some exclusive domain for the states.
Okay.
So this got nothing to do with it. It arises from a central act, Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, and there is no legal lacunae in the whole thing.
Okay, Sanjay Jha, now here's walking the fine line, and I want to uncloud the waters, sir. And that's where we began the premise of the conversation tonight. There are reasonable sentiments in this country of a particular section of the populace regarding the cow. These have been unchanged for millennia, sir, and I think are recognized by pretty much everyone, including yourself. And there has been a concern in this country that all those sentiments through illegal slaughterhouses are not being taken care of. And for that reason, better implementation of the law, refocus of the law is required. How does then this become, sir, at this stage, somehow anti-Dalit, anti-Muslim, anti-federal?
You know, it's very straightforward actually, that Mr. Modi's government has used the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act and thereabout, you know, created a backdoor roundabout amendment to the act to actually ensure that beef consumption in the country, whether it's by Dalits, whether it's by Muslims or Christians, or by the way, many Hindus have beef as well. End of day, this is an attempt to actually change the law and ensure that beef consumption will actually get extremely constrained. Let's try and understand the fundamental point here. You know, Dr. Swamy was talking about the fact that this is not a change to law. It is a change. It is an amendment to the law. For the simple reason that end of day, cow slaughter is banned. I don't think we are debating that. Here we are talking about buffalo meat. Now, India today happens to be the biggest beef exporter in the world. And the business volume is roughly around $4 billion US. What are we talking about here? We are talking about here a definite attempt to destroy the federal structure, because the decision to whether allow the buffalo consumption or slaughter to happen is also a state subject. But by using a central law, they're actually definitely trying to impinge on the autonomy of the states. But look at the more fundamental problem. End of day, this is, you know, 90% of the buffaloes which get slaughtered go through the animal markets.
Okay.
By putting a process of bureaucracy and red tape and a huge onus on the seller to find out what will happen to the buffalo when it is sold, I mean, you're going to create a destroy
Okay,
the
so
entire,
let me clear this apart.
Farm ecosystem.
Okay, let me clear this apart,
does
sir.
the BJP even understand
for people who are
that
watching this
there are 35
broadcast,
farmers suicides a
and
day?
I'm coming back to you with a follow-up
There are
question.
35
Let me clear this apart. There are those within certain fringe groups who muddy the waters, confuse the issue between what the law says on transportation of cows, what the law says versus healthy cows versus cows that have outlived their usefulness, what the law says between distinguishing between beef from buffaloes and from cows. And these fringe groups go about ranting and raving and attacking people, which is wrong. But there are several people who are watching this broadcast, sir, I can well imagine, who have reasonable concerns that cows for them are considered in a pious nature, in a pious way. What do we tell them tonight, sir?
Well, you know, are you asking me?
Yes, Sanjay Jha, that's for you.
Well, that's exactly the point. You know, see, the BJP out here is playing what I call as a master strategy of Hindutva politics. This is not to do with the cow. You see, through this amendment, now they're also putting an embargo on the buffalo. Now they're putting an embargo on bullocks, on bulls. They are basically ensuring that people who consume beef, or who farmers who sell the beef, you know, who kind of sell, putting an embargo on bullocks, on bulls, they are basically ensuring that people who consume beef, or who farmers who sell the beef, you know, who kind of sell buffaloes when they reach a certain age and have lesser productive value, now they cannot do it. In a great number of ways, this is nothing but attempting actually a food bigotry into India.
Okay, it's food
you are
bigotry.
Actually the government
okay,
of Mr.
and without
Modi
ascribing
is
to bigotry,
putting,
for those people, sir, and I come back to the central premise of the question, for those people who do not like to see cows slaughtered because they consider them to be at some level holy. There are people like that, Sanjay Jha, in this country. What do we tell them tonight? That we are batting for cow slaughter, what do we tell them?
Actually, for people to, the farmers to sell.
Sanjay, if you can hear me.
Their buffaloes in the market. The slaughterhouses will dry up for sure.
Okay, okay, just stay with me. I'll come back and put that point. I want to put that point to T.A. Rahmani. Mr. Rahmani, how do we walk the fine line? And I want you to walk the fine line with me tonight, sir. Because I don't want a to and fro raging argument. The bottom line remains that there are people in this country that very reasonably consider the cow as sacred. Now what do we tell them tonight? No, we should kill cows? If you can hear me, Mr. Rahmani. Okay, all right. We're going to sort out these two phone line connections in Sanjay Jha. And I want to go back to Dr. Swamy. Dr. Swamy, how do we walk that fine line? Concerns have been raised. Let's forget the federal issue for an instance. Concerns have been raised about the fact that there are certain abattoirs that are owned by a minority population. There are certain abattoirs that were perfectly legally run, that did not have any issues regarding their licenses, which have been forcibly closed down or have been attacked in various parts of the country. There are certain sections of the country, there are certain sections of the population that either have no aversion to kinds of beef, or beef is an active part of what they consume. The balance is finding out what is the reality, who can eat what. Dr. Swamy, how do we assuage concerns? If we forget the federal issue for a minute, how do we assuage concerns between sections of the country that they feel, who feel that their freedom of choice in what they eat is being impinged? What do we say to them tonight, sir?
All freedoms provided in the Constitution are subject to reasonable restrictions, and since the directive principles of the Constitution says, and that is it's an essential direction for under Article 37 to the governments, that there shall be a ban on the slaughter of cows. So therefore, there's no choice. It's a constitutional imposition, and it's been tested by the Supreme Court at least 5 times. The last time was a big constitutional body of the Supreme Court in 2005. They said eating cow is not an essential part of any religion, and therefore to say that Muslims will suffer, it is not constitutionally valid.
Okay, all right.
A point. So the Constitution has been upheld.
Okay, T.A. Rahmani, then let me counterpose the question to you, which I was trying to ask you a bit earlier, sir. What do we tell people in this country who are not the fringe, who are not beating up people or yelling and screaming and attacking convoys, people in this country who have a genuine concern and a genuine belief that the cow is sacred? What do we tell them? No.
Yes, you see, this is not a Muslim issue, and this is, for us at least, this is not an issue for last 800 years. When there was a Muslim rule, the Mughal rule, it was totally banned in all over the country. So during the British rule and after the independence since 1950, when the legislation against cow slaughters came in, we never protested. Never in any state out of 24 states, we never protested until today. We are demanding that there must be a central legislation to blanket ban the cow slaughtering in the country, but the government is not listening. They don't want to stop the business, the trading of cow meat to the international market. This is something very strange.
No, I don't understand, Mr. Rahmani. Are you suggesting that you are saying, no, that the argument that is being put out by the Congress party, and they're saying this anti-Muslim, anti-Dalit, every word possible that can be thrown at the book has been thrown, sir. Are you saying no, that cow slaughter should be banned, it's a good thing?
Not at all. Congress party is a selective secularist party. They don't know what kind of secularism they are practicing. This is not anti-Muslim at all. It was, in fact, Muslims in this country in the historical era who bred the cow themselves in the country.
Okay.
So this is not an anti-Muslim.
Okay, Mr. Rahmani, stay with me, because Sanjeev Unyal has been listening to this conversation very patiently. Okay, Mr. Unyal, and let me put the same premise to you, sir. For those who are not guided by politics, we've seen protests, we've seen the dastardly actions of several of the Congress, at least 3 of them in Kannur in Kerala, sir, where they decided that a political protest was the slaughter of a calf, And that, of course, the Congress party today has come out and distanced itself from. The reality that remains, as you see these antics that are playing out across your screens, is that politics hijacks the entire issue. There are politicians who are dividing up India on the basis of their political lines, not on the basis of your menu or your rights. They're dividing up India on the basis of what the Kerala government, the LDF government, has a peeve with the RSS and the center, on what the Congress government in Karnataka has a peeve, on what the government in Bengal of the TMC has with the center. When it comes to what Ramani, what Sanjay Jha of the Congress and Subramaniam Swamy have come out and said, there exist laws on the statutes. Those laws have been there for a long time. Some of them have been rules that are now being tested into legislation. They're being challenged in the Supreme Court. These are politicians getting involved into your menu, into what you eat, and we are trying to cull through, and I use these words carefully, the reasonable concerns of a lot of people in this country who have the right of belief versus the reasonable concerns of several individuals who've come out and said that we have a right to decide what we eat and how we eat it. Dr. Subramaniam Swamy, who has been having this conversation with us, has been telling us that even fundamental rights come with reasonable restrictions. But how do netas get into your plate, get into your palate, and get into deciding what you eat? The reality is that while buffaloes are being regulated under the new legislation, in several states, their slaughter is not wholesale banned. That is also beef. But no one will tell you that. No one will draw the distinction for you because it doesn't make for good politics. One side would like you to believe that this is some sort of Hindutva agenda. The other side would like you to believe that they are the saviors of ideology, when neither is the case. And that is the reality of where things stand. We've been having this conversation with three people on the basis of trying to get out the logic of what is actually happening, separate the truth from the fiction, so people out there know the difference tonight. Do not get muddied by the politics of all of this. Before we leave you, this is what's been happening on the ground, where people have been out challenging each other and making all sorts of tall claims. Then we head into the nation at 9 tonight.
कांग्रेस के कार्यकर्ता देश पर सेंटिमेंट के साथ क्यों खिलवाड़ करते हैं? ये क्या हो रहा है? लोकतंत्र में हर को अपनी बात कहने का अधिकार है, लेकिन शायद आजाद भारत में मैंने पहली बार देखा है कि एक पॉलिटिकल पार्टी के एक पॉलिटिकल वर्कर ने एक मशवरे को सार्वजनिक रूप से एक प्रकार से संहार करने की कोशिश की है। ये कौन सी पॉलिटिक्स हो रही है? ये बहुत दुर्भाग्यपूर्ण है। मैं इसकी भर्त्सना करता हूं।
You are virtually taking away the rights of the states, you are encroaching on their rights, and you are hitting at the livelihood of crores of farmers in India who already, courtesy the Modi government, rates of suicide have gone up, and now you are following policies instead of helping the farmers, you are going to further affect their livelihood, and therefore it is extremely wrong and it should be withdrawn with immediately.
India's culture is not to cause harm to anybody, any living being, much less to the holy cow which we all celebrate and revere. Anybody who has done so will have no place in the Congress party, and that's why Youth Congress workers have been already suspended by the Youth Congress.
In this new India, we're also hearing talk of, like, say, something like a beef ban. Cow vigilante we've heard of atrocities against Dalits. So the whole perception that is coming is the life of a cow more important than the life of a marginalized person.
Cow slaughter was banned. Cow slaughter was banned many years ago, somewhere in 1950s, and most of the Congress governments were.
Cow more important than the life of a marginalized person.
Cow slaughter was banned. Cow slaughter was banned many years ago, somewhere in 1950s. And most of the Congress governments were in power at that point of time.
Fair enough, Maharashtra.
The Constitution also lays down as one of the directive principles that it's suggested in the Constitution that as far as possible, try and enforce a cow slaughter ban.
Enforce. This
right?
enforce is the word that I have a problem
Now,
with.
So this is all acts have been passed then. Beef does not include cow, right? Beef is buffalo as well. So beef ban is an incorrect word that you all are using. Cow slaughter, if it is banned in that state, the rules were made much earlier. The rules are still existing.
Rajavardhan Rathore in conversation with Priya Sehgal there. That was the debate between beef versus belief. We slip into a short break on The Nation at 9. Up next.